dag, kjære lytter, og velkommen til del 2 av vår live-kommentar av den demokratiske debatten. Hvis du enda ikke har hørt del 1, så kan du finne den på både YouTube, iTunes og Spotify. God fornøyelse.
Weeks ago, the deadliest massacre of Latinos in modern U.S. history happened in this state, in El Paso. So the fear among Latinos, and you know this, is very real. So let me start with an issue that is causing a lot of division in this country, immigration. Vice President Biden, as a presidential candidate in 2008, you supported the border wall, saying, unlike most Democrats, I voted for 700 miles of fence. This is what you said. Then you served as vice president in an administration that deported 3 million people, the most ever in U.S. history. Did you do anything to prevent those deportations? I mean, you've been asked this question before and refused to answer, so let me try once again. Are you prepared to say tonight that you and President Obama made a mistake about deportations? Why should Latinos trust you?
What Latinos look at is comparing this president to the president we have is outrageous.
Det spørsmålet så feil på så mange måter.
Ja, jeg aner jo ikke hvorfor de ble deportert. Han bare sier statistikken, og bare, men dette må ha vært, premisset automatisk at det må ha vært feil.
Som om alle de som ble deportert hadde en rett til å være der I det hele tatt. Altså det var der.
Ladet spørsmål.
I would, in fact, make sure that we immediately surge to the border. All those people are seeking asylum. They deserve to be heard. That's who we are. We're a nation that says if you want to flee and you're fleeing oppression, you should come. I would change the order that the president just changed, saying women who were being
Men økonomiske migranter må komme lovlig, ikke sant?
And by the way, retrospectively,
Nettopp.
you know, the 25th anniversary of the Violence Against Women Act is up. The Republican Congress has not reauthorized it. Let's put pressure on them to pass the Violence Against Women Act now. But then we'll go back.
You didn't answer the question.
Well,
the question
I did answer the question.
Did you make a mistake with those deportations?
Holdt
Bare si nei.
The president
Så han holdt på å si det.
best thing that was able to be done at the
How about
time.
you?
I'm the Vice President of the United States.
Secretary Castro, would you want to respond to Vice President Biden?
You know,
and let me put this in context, because your party controlled the White House and Congress in 2009 and didn't pass immigration reform. And this broke a promise made by President Barack Obama.
Hva hensikten med det?
Promise to Latinos? Altså, hæ?
Hva hensikten med det spørsmålet her?
Bare...
Skal alle fra Sør-Amerika komme til USA?
Ja.
Skal alle få lov til å komme? Det det som liksom hensikten med å spille spørsmålet her?
Virker sånn. Altså, det jo for så vidt greit at de stiller disse spørsmålene. Jeg bare irriterer meg over at ikke de tør å vise Donald Trump svaret sitt, altså Biden. Han skulle jo bare sagt at, ok, har du noen konkrete saker du vil snakke om, eller det bare statistikk? Statistikken har vel en grunn I et eller annet juridisk prosess.
And then every time somebody questions part of the administration that we were both part of, he says, well, that was the president. I mean, he wasn't
Wow, han angriper virkelig Biden I dag,
not have to answer to any questions.
Vice President Biden, you have 45 seconds.
Let me just say that I was the first candidate in early April to put forward an immigration plan. You know why? Because I'm not afraid of Donald Trump on this issue. I'm not going to backpedal. I'm not going to pretend like I don't have my own vision for immigration. So we're not going to give up DACA. We're not going to give up protections for anybody. I believe that on January 20th, 2021, we're going to have a Democratic president. We're going to throw out Mitch McConnell and John Cornyn and have a Democratic Senate and a Democratic House. And we're going to pass immigration reform within the first 100 days.
Vice President, 45 seconds.
I did not say I don't stand. I stand
Hørte
with
du
Barack Obama all 8 years. Good,
Hørte
bad,
du hva han
and
sa, han
different. That's
intervjuet?
where I stand. I did
Nei,
not say I did
Altså,
not stand with him.
Vice President, 2 seconds eller sånt, noe sånt der. Sånn. Biden har ikke vært vice president på veldig, veldig lenge.
Ja, men det vanlig å adressere de til den siste høyeste titelen deres.
Ok.
So how would you deal with the millions of immigrants who arrive legally but overstay their visa.
President, my president.
Stop hundreds of thousands of Central Americans who want to migrate.
Da han glemte navnet til Obama. Det så ikke bra ut.
And that is, in this country, immigration does not make us weaker. Immigration makes us stronger. I want to see us expand legal immigration and create a pathway to citizenship for our dreamers, but also for their grandparents.
Tror jeg Warren mister mange av de som vipper mellom, eller vipper
And for people who came here to work in the fields, I want to have a system that is a path to citizenship that is fair.
Det insentiver til å migrere.
Down at the border, we've got to rework this entirely.
Migrere på ulovlig vis, altså.
Men hun sa at hun vil ha en path to citizenship. Hun har ikke sagt at hun vil ha sterke grenser, da.
Hun har tidligere sagt at hun ønsker å dekriminalisere grensen.
Mr. Yang.
Yang? Glemt at han der I det hele tatt.
Ja, han har jo ikke fått si noen ting,
Han fikk ikke heller, da. Moderatoren sa Yang, og så bare fikk Warren fortsette å snakke.
Ja, dette var en 1-minuttsrunde, og hun vel oppe I 2 nå snart. Hun jo en av topp 3, da, så hun må jo få litt ekstra tid, tydeligvis. Ikke sånn det burde funke.
Mr. Yang, it is true that in the last few years we have seen the most severe anti-immigrant measures, from putting kids in cages to limiting asylum for people fleeing gangs.
Policyen ikke 4 år gammel, den ganske mye eldre enn det.
That about 1 million immigrants enter the US legally.
Fy faen, ass. Hvem han her, liksom?
Ja, han...
immigrants from 1 million to 2 million per year, and should there be a merit system, as President Trump wants?
So, yeah, I'm sorry, did you ask me or?
Mr. Yang.
Already said it, okay, sorry.
My father grew up on a peanut farm in Asia with no floor, and now his son is running for president. That is the immigration story that we have to share. If you look at our history, almost half of Fortune 500 companies were founded by their immigrants or children of immigrants, and rates of business formation are much higher in immigrant communities. We have to say to the American people, immigrants are positive for our economic and social dynamism, and I would return the level of legal immigration to the point it was under the Obama-Biden administration. I think we have to compete for talent, and I am the opposite of Donald Trump in many ways.
Han sier at han vil beholde lovverket rundt migrasjon over grensa. Han ønsker ikke å dekriminalisere. Det synes jeg veldig bra.
And this is where you want to build a company, build a family, and build a life. This country has been a magnet for human capital for generations. If we lose that, we lose something integral to our continued success, and that is where I would be as president.
Alcalde Pete, tengo una pregunta para usted.
Gracias.
Alcalde Pete, 8 out of 10 Latinos in Texas fear another mass shooting targeting them. This is according to a new Univision poll. President Trump has called
han snakket om MS-13, ikke meksikanske migranter. Han snakket om MS-13.
His supporters have chanted, build a wall.
Dette den samme stråmannen som MSNBC og CNN og drar hver gang.
Nå vi rett tilbake til spørsmål nummer 2, som var handler om rasisme. Så dette jo det 4. spørsmålet, altså den 4. spørsmålsrunden, som egentlig bare en drawback til spørsmålsrunde nummer 2. Det ingenting.
Sentralt I alle de demokratiske plattformene, bortsett fra Biden, Bernie og Tulsi, så dette rasismespørsmålet. Og at Trump racist.
Yang og Buttigieg, de ganske Klobuchar også, kanskje.
Ja, Buttigieg og Klobuchar også, for så vidt. Men de andre her, de som, det som hovedplattformen deres.
Når det så mange kandidater som hovedplattformen å snakke om rasisme, da blir det mye prat om rasisme.
Det og alt snus tilbake til det spørsmålet.
We have an opportunity to actually get something done, but we cannot allow this to continue to be the same debate with the same arguments and the same clever lines, often among the same people, since the last
det
bill
godt
reform
sagt.
happened in the 1980s. We have to actually engage the American majority.
Dette skårer høyere og høyere hos meg hver gang jeg ser han, altså.
Not just growth in small communities, but our values.
Det, han gjør det, og jeg føler frustrasjonen hans om at han blir hele tiden tvunget til å snakke om identitetspolitikk, og han har ikke lyst til å gjøre det.
Inn i det hver gang, altså. Han har gode svar. Han klarer å snakke seg videre uten å faktisk tråkke på noen tær på akkurat det der. For det har åpenbart et viktig tema for veldig mange demokratiske velgere. Men ja.
Han flink.
I think that could help us to keep a handle on visa overstays, but I think the larger question that we're trying to get at is how do we rewrite this country's immigration laws in our own image, in the image of Houston, Texas, the most diverse city in the United States of America, in the image of El Paso, Texas, one of the safest cities in the United States of America, safe not despite the fact that we are seeing immigrants, safe because we are a city of immigrants. Si queremos asegurar nuestras comunidades y nuestro país, necesitamos tratar cada persona y dignidad. I will lead an effort to make sure that we rewrite our immigration laws in that way. Never cage another child. Make sure that there is accountability and justice for the 7 lives lost under our care and our custody.
Beito får så mye tid til å snakke når han poller så dårlig.
Jeg synes du skal få like mye tid alle sammen, rett og slett. Jeg drikker på høyt alle får like mye tid.
Han poller ikke noe bedre enn Yang. Altså, hvorfor får han lov til å snakke i en evighet og få masse spørsmål når Yang ikke får det? Det er jo latterlig.
Legalize America, begin with those more than 1 million dreamers, make them US citizens right now in their true home country, and extend that to their parents, their sisters, and their brothers.
Nå har de latt han snakke lenge, altså.
Legal, safe, orderly system to come to this country and add to our greatness here.
Nå skal de snakke om utenrikspolitikk. Dette har jeg gledet meg spesielt til.
We received more than 100 questions from viewers wanting to know
how all Kina
these tariffs. And Mr. Yang, let me begin with you. Would you repeal the tariffs on your first day in office? And if so, would you risk losing leverage in the trade relationship with China?
I would not repeal the tariffs on day one, but I would let the Chinese know that we need to hammer out a deal. Because right now, the tariffs are pummeling.
Yang skårer mye på begge sider av spektrum, altså, for han gir seg ikke etter det venstresiden alltid ønsker.
And he said that he saw pirated U.S. intellectual property on worker workstations to the tune of thousands of dollars per head. And he said, 1, how can my workers compete against that? And 2, think about all the lost revenue to American companies. So the imbalances are real, but we have to let the Chinese know that we recognize that President Trump has pursued an arbitrary and haphazard trade policy that has had victims on both sides. So no to repealing the tariffs immediately, but yes to making sure we come to a deal that addresses the concerns of American companies and American producers.
Mayor Pete, let me take that question. Let me take that question to you, because if you've seen President Trump's tweets, he says what's going to happen here is the Chinese are just going to wait him out so they can get a Democrat who they can take advantage of. How do you think about China? We've seen President Trump call President Xi both an enemy and a friend.
Well, the president clearly has no strategy. You know, when I first got into this race, I remember President Trump scoffed and said he'd like to see me making a deal with Xi Jinping. I'd like to see him making a deal with Xi Jinping. Is it just me, or was that supposed to happen in, like, April? It's one more example of a commitment not made. When that happens on the international stage, people take note. Not just our competitors, our adversaries, but also our allies take note of the inability of the United States to keep its word or follow through on its plans. And when that happens, there are serious consequences. We saw it at the G7, the leaders of some of the greatest powers and economies of the world, sitting to talk about one of the greatest challenges in the world, climate change, and there was literally an empty chair where American leadership could have been. The problem is, this is a moment when American leadership is needed more than ever, whether it's in Hong Kong, where those protesters for democracy need to know that they have a friend in the United States, or anywhere around the world where increasingly we see dictators throwing their weight around. The world needs America, but it can't be just any America.
Would you repeal the tariffs?
I would have a strategy that would include the tariffs as leverage, but it's not about the tariffs. Look, what's going on right now is a president who has reduced the entire China challenge into a question of tariffs, when what we know is that the tariffs are coming down on us more than anybody else.
Han sier mye av det samme som Yang. Jeg synes det var bra fra begge to, altså.
What we've got right now, though, George, it's not a focused tariff on steel. What he has done here, he has assessed these tariffs on our allies. He has put us in the middle of this trade war, and he is treating our farmers and our workers like
Tariffer på allierte, hva det hun tenker på da?
Hun tenker at det blir at det to sider av tariffmynten, og at det slår tilbake på USA og for eksempel Europa da.
There is soybeans that are mounting up in bins all over the Midwest, in my state of Minnesota and in Iowa. So what I think we need to do is to go back to the negotiating table. That's what I would do. I wouldn't have put all these tariffs in place, and I wouldn't have had a trade policy where on August 1st he announces he's going to have tariffs on $300 billion of goods. On August 13th he cuts it in half. A week later he says he's going to reduce taxes. The day after that he says he's going to do it. The leaders of the world are watching this, and it undermines our strength as a nation. And yes, we want fair trade, but we must work with the rest of the world. And he has made a mockery of focused trade policy, which I think means enforcement, like we've done in northern Minnesota, passing bills, getting President Obama to do more on that, so that our workers can benefit. So we are importing, exporting goods, and making sure that is a competitive policy, where our goal is that we are making things, inventing things, and exporting to the world. He is defeating that goal.
Secretary Castro, you actually in one of the previous debates identified China as the most serious national security threat to our country.
Ja, faktisk Castro snakker mye om Kina. Veldig opptatt av
en av de største nasjonale sikkerhetstruslene. Det er det hardeste jeg har hørt en presidentkandidat gå ut mot Kina, faktisk.
As Senator Klobuchar said, 300,000 American jobs.
Det er også han som har denne nye forslaget om en sånn ny Marshall-plan.
Ja,
snakket om i siste episode.
Ja, for søramerikanere.
Ja, det planen der er jo å dra disse søramerikanske landene mer under Amerikas...
Inn i USA sin sfære, i stedet for at de eventuelt blir tatt opp av Kina etter hvert.
Ja, nettopp.
Ikke en dum strategi. Spørsmålet er om pengene ender Spørsmålet er jo om pengene ender der han mener de skal ende, da. Det har man jo sett til at de ikke gjør.
Det er et godt poeng, men det jeg snakker om er jo Kina. Kina styrker seg i Afrika, og da må USA styrke seg i Sør-Amerika.
I would immediately begin ratcheting that trade war down. We have leverage in that discussion.
Senator Warren, let me bring you in on this conversation. President Obama signed the Trans-Pacific Partnership.
Det bare virker rart for eller jeg synes det virker rart at en demokratisk kandidat er så opptatt av Kina. Det
er uvant. Det er veldig greit at de bryr seg om utenrikspolitikk. Det er veldig bra.
Det virker som noe mer Trump kunne pratet om, liksom.
Ja, jeg er helt enig. Det høres litt mer ut som en republikansk agenda. Så sånn sett så synes jeg det er greit at vi får det narrativet på scenen her også.
Men jeg er helt enig med det. Jeg vil heller bo i en verden styrt av USA enn en verden styrt av Kina.
Jeg er ikke uenig der.
The way we change our trade policy in America is first, the procedures. Who sits at the table? I want to negotiate trade with unions at the table. I want to negotiate it with small farmers at the table. I want to negotiate it with environmentalists at the table. I want to negotiate with human rights activists at the table. And you asked the question about leverage. If I can just respond to that one. The leverage? Are you kidding? Everybody wants access to the American market. That means that we have the capacity to say right here in America, you want to come sell goods to American consumers, then you've got to raise your standards. You've got to raise your labor standards, and you've got to raise your environmental standards, so our companies can compete on a level playing field.
Så du vil ha flere tariffer, da?
We can use trade not to undermine American
Ja, eller
workers,
hun ønsker I hvert fall å stille sterkere krav til businesspartnerne til USA.
small businesses in this country. We can use
Som
trade
altså,
to help
jeg skjønner at det vanskelig for amerikanske arbeidere å konkurrere med ekstremt lavt lønnede arbeidere på tvers av vannet.
Det går jo ikke an. Ja,
Det gjør jo ikke det, men det jo derfor Trump trakk USA ut av TPP.
Nettopp, det akkurat det jeg skulle frem til å si. Det jo derfor Trump pusher for mange av disse tariffene.
Ja. Så de vet jo helt sikkert selv, men ja, det mye av det samme de snakker om nå som Trump allerede har gjort, eller har pushet.
Ja, det de samme ideene, bare litt annerledes retorikk.
Bare vinklet som om Trump har gjort feil.
We have to have a meaningful trade policy. I am not a protectionist Democrat. Look, we need to sell our stuff. And that means we need to sell it to people overseas. That means we need trade policies that allow that to happen. You asked earlier about China. It's a complicated relationship. We have to hold China accountable. They steal our products, including our intellectual property. They dump substandard products into our economy. They need to be held accountable. We also need to partner with China on climate and the crisis that presents.
Ja, det et godt poeng, faktisk. Får ikke gjort noen ting på klima uten å samarbeide.
Nei, absolutt ikke.
Har du forresten hørt Yang snakke om sin klimaplan?
Han veldig for atomkraft, det synes jeg.
Ja, men ikke bare det. Han jo fullstendig overbevist om at det basically, det har gått for langt, altså vi får ikke gjort noe med klimaendringene. De kommer uansett, og debatten må heller handle om hva vi kan gjøre for å forberede oss på de endringene.
Han har jo sagt flytt opp I fjellene, hvis dere bor ved kysten. Altså, han har gått så langt.
Ja.
Jeg ikke nødvendigvis uenig med han, for å si det sånn. Jeg har et veldig kynisk og pessimistisk syn på klimaendringer.
And one of the reasons is that for decades we have had disastrous trade policies. And I got to say to my good friend Joe Biden, Joe and I strongly disagree on trade. I helped lead the opposition to NAFTA and PNTR, which cost this country over 4 million good-paying jobs. And what happened is people who had those jobs ended up getting other jobs, making 50% of what they made.
Bernie glitrende til å få hver eneste mulighet til å bringe det tilbake til arbeiderklassen. Altså, han det. Han skal ha den. Ikke at jeg alltid enig med han, men han bringer det alltid. Uansett hvilke spørsmål han får, så bringer han det tilbake til sin kampanje, og det han vil svare på.
Ja, for det åpenbare her jo at USA har mistet jobbene, men disse jobbene har poppet opp andre steder, og det skapt jobber og inntekt andre steder. Da. Så det ikke åpenbart negativt, liksom. Det en litt annen måte å se det på at USA har importert litt jævligere arbeidsmarked, da, og så eksportert litt bedre arbeidsmarked, på en måte.
We need another 25% to join us. And I think Senator Warren is correct. At the table has to be labor, and at the table have to be environmentalists. The fact of the matter is, China, the problem isn't the trade deficit. The problem is their
intellectual
property. The problem is they're violating the WTO. They're dumping steel.
Men så det debatten om intellectual property. Det en greie, eller det ikke en greie?
Ja, jeg litt sånn... Jeg skjønner litt hva det...
Jeg skjønner konsekvensen av å ikke tenke at det noe som heter intellectual property. Da det ikke noen grenser for hva man kan, av ideer man kan stjele fra et annet land. Og det jo det man ser at Kina gjør fra USA.
Det kineserne sier, at vi Vi låner jo bare. Vi låner. Vi bygger på disse... Vi låner en fantastisk idé, og så bygger vi på den. Og
vi forbedrer og gjør vår egen.
Det sånn vi utvikler oss, det sånn vi går videre. Vi kan ikke bare...
Det i stor grad det Russland gjør også. Det har jo sikkert du merket etter at du flyttet dit.
På hvilken måte tenker du?
Det på, la oss si, telefon-applications som har nøyaktig samme funksjon som våre europeiske applications, men som da
Men det mye av det tror jeg går på at de synes at de skal liksom ha et alternativ til alt som vestlig. Så derfor finner de opp liksom, de ser, ok, hva det som populært i Vesten, og så finner de opp den russiske versjonen av det.
And our strength is multiplied and magnified when we stand with our allies in common cause and
Dette synes jeg var bra,
That's how we beat China.
At vi må stå med våre allierte. At det en god måte. Men jeg ikke nødvendigvis enig at premisset at man må slå Kina. Hvorfor kan man ikke ha en avtale med Kina også? Jeg har aldri skjønt det hvorfor skal det alltid være lag mot lag? Kan ikke alle bare samarbeide? Nei, jeg kanskje litt idealist på akkurat det, men...
Nei, men du vet hva, du inne på noe som et veldig godt poeng som mange av de demokratene ikke har tatt inn over seg, at Kina har nå opplevd en så stor økonomisk vekst at de har løftet sykt mange mennesker ut av ekstrem fattigdom og inn i middelklassen, ikke sant?
Absolutt.
Og da har
ut av ekstrem fattigdom i hvert fall, ikke inn i middelklassen, men ja.
Ja, de har faktisk fått en ganske svær middelklasse også. Det som har gjort det at lønningene har gått veldig mye opp, og nå eksporterer Kina, nå jobber til land som Vietnam, så videre, som fattigere land, ikke sant? Så de opplever litt de står litt i den, på en måte, den samme utviklingen som USA har gått i, da.
Bare at de har brukt 10 år mot USA som har brukt 200 år.
Ja, men det ikke bare sånn at Kina har noe sånn opplever sånn helt sinnssykt vekst, og alt det de gjør helt bra. De har problemer, de også. Og samarbeide...
Det Kina har jo en sterk stat og en sterk økonomi, men de har ikke da et demokrati.
Ja, en sterk stat som også livredde for at folk skal tenke ille om dem. Overvåkningen.
Du kan jo se for deg hva konsekvensene ville vært om 500 millioner bønder i Kina hadde fått stemmerett. Det hadde blitt en radikal redistribuering av penger, for å si det sånn.
Det hva de gjør med Hong Kong.
Ja, ikke sant?
Men ja, som du var inne på, løsningen å samarbeide, ikke å demonisere motstandere.
Helt enig, og det samme gjelder da Russland, synes jeg.
Ja, på ekstremt mange måter, altså. Det ikke gjort en egen episode av sånn misforståelser og ja, demonisering av hvordan Russland sånn. Russerne sier jo selv at de liksom verdens mest misforståtte land, og på mange måter jeg enig.
Ja.
I talked to people, we did. We talked to military leaders, American and local leaders. We talked to people on the ground and asked the question, the same one I ask on the Senate Armed Services Committee, every time one of the generals comes through. Show me what winning looks like. Tell me what it looks like. And what you hear is a lot of, because no one can describe it. And the reason no one can describe it is because the problems in Afghanistan are not problems that can be solved by a military.
Har hun helt rett.
I have 3 older brothers who have served in the military.
Vil hun trekke seg helt ut, eller?
The kind of commitment they have made. They will do anything we ask them to do. But we cannot ask them to solve
Nei, jeg tror det motsatt.
We need to work with the rest
Vil ha mer involvering?
Ja, det virker som at hun ønsker å bli, altså. Hjelpe dem å bygge opp, påstår hun.
Det jo et godt argument, det.
Ja,
vi trenger en million
man trenger soldater i stedet for at man skal hjelpe det å bygge opp, så det blir jo... Ja. Jeg ikke imot å hjelpe dem å bygge opp, men presens jo alltid litt
moralsk sett så bør man jo, Norge skulle vært med på å bygge opp igjen Libya, liksom.
Absolutt.
Moralsk sett.
Etter å ha deltatt I bombingene der, helt klart.
You know, I served under General Dunford, way under General Dunford in Afghanistan. And today, September 12th, 2019, means that today you could be 18 years old enough to serve, and have not been alive on 9/11. We have got to put an end to endless war. And the way we do it is see to it that that country will never again be used for an attack against our homeland.
Jeg blir bare mer og mer glad I han,
Ja, hvis ikke han må argumentere for å beholde presensen der, da. Jeg veldig for å trekke seg ut, altså.
Ikke sant? Han imot involvering. Han vil trekke seg ut.
Congress will be required to vote, and a president will be required to go to Congress to seek an authorization. Because if our troops can summon the courage to go overseas, the least our members of Congress should be able to do is summon the courage to take a vote on whether they ought to be there. By the way, we also have a president right now who seems to treat troops as props, or worse, tools for his own enrichment. We saw what's going on with flights apparently being routed through Scotland just so people can stay at his hotels. I'll tell you, as a military officer, the very first thing that goes through your mind, the first time you ever make eye contact with somebody that you are responsible for in uniform, is do not let these men and women down. This president is doing exactly that. I will not.
Mayor Buttigieg, thank you. I want to turn to Vice President Biden because the
ingen som har sterk nok utenrikspolitikk etter å ha hørt på Tulsi Gabbard, altså. Det tragisk at ikke hun på den scenen her og kan gi narrativet sitt.
Ja, absolutt. Jeg 100% enig med deg, men han snakket nå faktisk om at han vil ende disse endless wars og altså på en eller annen merkelig grunn så havnet han inn på Trump og Skottland.
Men han sa det uten å nevne å trekke troppene tilbake.
Ja, jeg enig.
Så jeg litt, hvis jeg hører si trekke ut troppene, så jeg skeptisk, altså.
Ja, jeg enig I det.
My friend, han glemte navnet hans.
But I've been out of Afghanistan. I think I've heard anybody on this, and it's an open secret. You reported a long time ago.
My boss.
Det var morsomt om han fikk et spørsmål. Ja, kan du si navnet til alle på scenen?
Was to not have a counterinsurgency, meaning that we're going to put that.
Det faktisk en seriøs samtale om han liksom et tidlig stadie av liksom Alzheimers nå? Altså han glemmer, han midt I en setning og glemmer hva han skal si, han glemmer navn, han glemmer navnet til Obama, altså han I et tidlig stadie av Alzheimers, altså det ikke lek liksom, det presidentvalget, det handler ikke om å være hyggelig, du må ha en kandidat som faktisk kan være president.
Han skal holde I 4 år også, minst.
Ja,
Men her argumenterer han altså for å forbli I Afghanistan, fordi at han mener at landet vil bli delt opp. Hvis ikke en militær presens vil sted.
Når var det USA invaderte Afghanistan? Husker du det?
Det snart 20 år siden. Og de har ikke kommet noen vei. Taliban står like sterkt I Afghanistan nå som de gjorde før USA gikk inn. Det helt, det ingenting.
Det var en sånn svær rapport som jeg tror kom for 2 år siden, som også vårt militære var med på å lage, hvor konklusjonen var at ingenting hadde blitt bedre Faktisk motsatt. Ting har blitt verre etter invasjonen av Afghanistan.
Det akkurat det blant annet Tulsi Gabbard sier, at vi har ikke, og hun har jo vært stasjonert I Afghanistan, og hun sier at ting har ikke blitt bedre, de har blitt verre.
Så når var invasjonen? Var det 2001, var det ikke det?
Det var vel kort tid etter 9/11, så gikk de inn I både Irak og Afghanistan.
Så
altså etter 2001. La oss si 2003 så var de inne I begge.
Ok, ja. 16 år, 17 år.
Ja, rundt der.
Så har ting bare blitt verre. Ja, det jo et godt argument for å bli det, når ting har blitt verre.
Ja, ikke sant? Jeg trenger bare 17 år til, så begynner det å bli litt bedre.
Kanskje folk skal få lov til å bygge opp landet sitt selv?
Ja.
David, let me answer that, but let me just comment on something that the Vice President said. You talked about the big mistake in Iraq and the surge. The truth is, the big mistake, the huge mistake, and one of the big differences between you and me, I never believed what Cheney and Bush said about Iraq. You voted against the war
Bernie sterk, ass.
and helped lead the opposition. And it's sad to say.
Skulle bare ønske han var 20 år yngre.
Ja, det synd at han ble populært så sent. Det det som hans største motstander akkurat nå, hans egen alder.
Det det.
Og da Hillary Clinton-kampanjen da, som jukset.
Defend us who have responded to the call of duty. But I think also I am the only person up here to have voted against all 3 of Trump's military budgets. I don't think we have to spend $750 billion a year on the military when we don't even know who our enemy is.
Fienden terrorisme.
I think that what we have got to do is bring this world together. Bring it together on climate change. Bring it together in fighting against terrorism. And make it clear that we as a planet, as a global community, will work together.
Nå han sterk. Nå Bernie sterk.
Rebuild their struggling economies and do everything that we can to rid the world of terrorism, but dropping bombs on Afghanistan and Iraq was not the way.
Han hadde scoret enda flere poeng hos meg hvis han hadde slengt inn Libya og Syria også.
Og på tide å trekke seg ut. Oi, Yang. Redde muligheten til å snakke I dag.
Ja, så der ja. Han fortsatt, jeg trodde han hadde gått til meg.
As you share the stage with these candidates, what makes you the most qualified on this stage to be commander-in-chief?
Okay. Jeg liker at han ikke får et eneste spørsmål økonomi, som økonomi det plattformen hans handler om.
Men det ja, det kommer vel snart. Det fortsatt en 45 minutter igjen.
La oss håpe det.
We've spent trillions of dollars to unclear benefits, lost thousands of lives, and thank you, Pete, for your service. And the goal has to be to rebuild the relationships that have made America strong for decades. I would lead our armed forces with restraint and judgment. What the American people want is simply a president who has the right values and point of view, and they can trust to make the right decisions when it comes to putting our young men and women into harm's way. And that's what I would do as president.
Mr. Yang, thank you. Jorge?
Thank you very much. Vamos a hablar de América Latina. You haven't been asked about Latin America in the previous debate, so let's begin. Senator Sanders, one country where many immigrants are arriving from is Venezuela. A recent UN fact-finding mission found that thousands have been disappeared, tortured, and killed by government forces in Venezuela. You admit that Venezuela does not have free elections, but still you refuse to call Nicolás Maduro un dictador, a dictator. Can you explain why, and what are the main differences between your kind of socialism and the one being imposed in Venezuela?
Hva synes du om det spørsmålet, Andre?
Nei, det var veldig ledende. Han sammenligner han med Maduro. Herregud.
Hva faen han her, liksom?
Han skitten på hendene sine, I hvert fall.
Fy faen.
Men det bare bra, det. Gi han en sjanse til å forklare seg selv, og Bernie scorer fans på det, altså. Han gjør det hver gang.
Jeg enig på en måte, det å på en måte stille disse fucka harde spørsmålene gir en mulighet til å snakke om det, men jeg liker ikke måten han...
Nei, jeg liker ikke måten det stilles på, jeg heller. Men jeg tror I lengden så tjener Bernie på dette, altså.
Kanskje.
Han kan ikke sammenlignes med Maduro. Han kan ikke sammenlignes, altså policyen til Bernie kan ikke sammenlignes med policyen til Maduro. Og ja, man kan si hva man vil om Maduro, men han en folkevalgt president. Han det. Det ikke det amerikanske valgte alternativet. Guaidó, han ikke valgt av folket.
Men fy faen, jeg hadde virkelig ikke trodd at Venezuela skulle bli tatt opp som et tema I debatten. Det var... Det litt rart.
Ja, nei, ja. Jeg hadde for så vidt ventet det. Det mye... Ja, jeg hadde det, altså. De har ikke helt glemt Venezuela enda, selv om kuppet til Guaidó feilet.
Ja, på en måte, altså... Jeg helt det krise det som skjer der, men... Det et bitte lite land på en måte som...
Ja, I forhold til USA, det ja.
What we need to do is to, along with our allies, make sure that the Venezuelan people get the assistance that they need, that we continue to pressure Venezuela so that they'll have free and fair elections, and also here in the United States, offer temporary protected status, TPS, to Venezuelans. That is something that the Trump administration has failed to do for all of his big talk about supporting the Venezuelan American community. He has failed. I will not.
Så hvorfor det ganske mange land mellom Venezuela og USA. Og blant annet har jo åpnet for å ta imot flyktninger, men problemet jo at de ikke ønsker å stoppe opp I Mexico. De ønsker til USA.
Så det liksom, det en umiddelbar løsning som tar dem vekk fra området det skjer dårlige ting I, men hvis jeg skal tenke litt som en sånn realist med politisk standpunkt, altså, hvem det som egentlig skal være igjen I landet sitt og fikse det? Det jo de menneskene som faktisk fra det landet, da.
De som gjerne har pengene til å dra til et annet sted.
Ikke det amerikanske militæret, eller... Ja, la folk ordne landet sitt selv.
Snakker de om Brasil og Bolsonaro, den ganske langt høyre presidenten. Hva det?
You know, first of all, I want to say no. Actually, I want to translate that into Spanish. No.
Han dro det ikke lenger enn det. Ok, bra. Takk.
Det var litt morsomt.
Det var
Look, let's just be clear. The factory farming going on that's assaulting this corporate consolidation in the agriculture industry. One of the reasons why I have a bill to put a moratorium on this kind of corporate consolidation is because this factory farming is destroying and hurting our environment, and you see independent family farmers being pushed out of business because of the kind of incentives we are giving that don't line up with our values. That's what I'm calling for. But I want to switch because we don't have karate debate stage. We were talking about Afghanistan and Iraq. It annoys me that we had a conversation about our troops overseas and we didn't say one word about veterans in our country. We have a shameful reality in America that we send people off to war and they often come home with invisible wounds, hurts and harms. They're disproportionately homeless.
Det greit å trekke debatten inn på det, men jeg tror ingen uenig med han om at
Nei, det absolutt ikke. Men det det som en smart presidentkandidat, så snu tema til det han har en sterk plattform på.
Ja, det godt poeng.
Det Dr. veldig flink til, altså.
We end our national anthem with Home of the Brave. It's about time we make this a better home for our bravest.
Congressman O'Rourke, Hurricane Harvey hit this town 2 years ago, and not only is the Amazon burning, Greenland is melting at a record pace. The last 5 years have been the hottest ever recorded, and we have a viewer's question about this. What meaningful action will you take to reverse the effect of climate change, and can we count on you to follow through if your donors are against it?
Yes, we will follow through regardless of the political consequences or who it offends, because this is the very future of our planet and our ability for our children and grandchildren to be able to survive on it. We will make sure that we get to net zero greenhouse gas emissions no later than the year 2050, that we are halfway there by 2030, that we mobilize $5 trillion over the next 10 years to do that, that we invest here in Houston, Texas, with pre-disaster mitigation grants to protect those communities that are vulnerable to flooding, given the fact that this town has seen 3 500-year floods in just 5 years. You'd like to think you're good for 1,500 years, but you're not. They're coming faster and larger and more devastating than ever. We're also going to make sure that we free ourselves from a dependence on fossil fuels and embrace renewable wind and solar energy technology, as well as the high-paying, high-skill, high-wage jobs that come along with that. And then we're going to pay farmers for the environmental services that they want to provide, planting cover crops, keeping more land under conservation, using no-till farming. Regenerative agriculture can pull carbon out of the air and can drive it and sequester it into the soil.
Her har han litt konkrete forslag da, det liker han faktisk. Det synes jeg var bra. Ja, det var sterk. Han O'Rourke imponerer på klima, så han gjør det.
Thank you. This is the existential crisis of our time. It's, you know, that movie, The Day After Tomorrow? It's today. We have seen a warming in our world like never before. We're seeing flooding in the Midwest, flooding in Houston, fires in the West.
The day before, the day after tomorrow is today.
The day before, the day before.
On day 1, I will get us back into the International Climate Change Agreement. On day 2, I will bring back the clean power rules that President Obama had worked on. On day 3, I will bring back the gas mileage standards. You can do all that without Congress, which is good. On day 4, 5, and 6, I will, working with Congress and mayors and business people all over the country, introduce sweeping legislation.
Jeg liker at hun sa at hun vil bringe tilbake Obamas plan.
La oss gå tilbake til 4 år siden.
Var det ikke et amerikansk valg hvor folk stemte inn Trump? Nesten som en protest mot det som allerede hadde vært. Kanskje folk ikke syns at Obama var så bra president?
Merkelig det der. Han har fått litt sånn der legendestatus. Samtidig som det ganske mange som angriper han også.
Vet du hva, der faktisk Jimmy Dore ganske sterk når han snakker om at Obama gjorde mye crap mens han var president, men det var liksom ikke lov å kritisere han blant demokrater, for at han skulle liksom være den perfekte president.
All carbon emissions from the manufacture of electricity.
Ja, Jimmy Dore veldig bra på kritikken av stort sett det meste, altså. Sånn det når man ikke tjener mye penger, da har man ikke så mange forpliktelser.
But understand this one more time. Why doesn't it happen? As long as Washington is paying more attention to money than it is to our future, we can't make the changes we need to make. We have to attack the corruption head on so that we can save our planet.
Senator Harris, 45 seconds.
When I think about this issue, it really is through the lens of my baby nieces who are 1.5 and 3 years old. When I look at what is going to be the world if we do nothing when they turn 20, I'm really scared. And when I've been in the United States Senate for now the last 2.5 years, and I look at our counterparts, the Republicans in the United States Senate, they must be looking at their children, and then when they look at the mirror, I don't know what they see, but it's a lack of courage. And this is an issue that, yes, it represents an existential threat. It is also something we can do something about. This is a problem that was created by human behaviors. And we can change our behaviors in a way that saves our planet. I've seen it happen in California. I took on, as the Attorney General of California, I ran the second largest Department of Justice in the United States, second only to the United States Department of Justice. I took on the big oil companies, and we saw progress. If any of you have been to Los Angeles 20 years ago, you'll remember that sky was brown. You go there now, the sky is blue, and you know why? Because leader just decided to lead, and we took on these big fossil fuel companies. We have some of the most important and strongest laws in the country, and we made a difference. And my point being, I've done it before, and I will lead as president on this issue because we have no time. The clock is ticking, but we need courage, and we need courageous leadership. We can get this done.
Mr. Yang.
So to follow up on what Elizabeth said, why are we losing to the fossil fuel companies? Why are we losing to the gun lobby and the NRA? And the answer is this. We all know, everyone on the stage knows, that our government has been overrun by money and corporate interests. Now, everyone here has a plan to try and curb those corporate interests, but we have to face facts. Money finds a way. Money will find its way back in.
Yep.
So what is the
poeng,
answer?
Yang.
The answer is to wash the money out with people-powered money.
Nå kommer det, vet
My
du.
proposal is that we give every American $100 democracy dollars that you can only give to candidates
$100.
This will wash out the lobbyist cash by a factor of 8 to 1. That is the only way we will win. And as someone running for president, I'll tell you, there's the people on one side and the money on the other. The only way for us to win is if we bring them together.
Thank you, Mr. Yang.
Gi han mer tid.
I'd like to have a discussion now about education. Mr. Yang, will stay with you. Here in Houston, the school district is facing yet another year of spending cuts. Like schools across the country, the system faces many challenges. One of them, thousands of students are leaving traditional public schools and going to charter schools. You're the most vocal proponent on this stage for charter schools. You have said that Democrats who want to limit them are, quote, just jumping into bed with teachers' unions and doing kids a disservice. Why isn't taxpayer money better spent on fixing traditional public schools?
Let me be clear, I am pro-good school. I've got a kid, one of my little boys just started public school last week, and I was not there because I was running for president. So we need to pay teachers more because the data clearly shows that a good teacher is worth his or her weight in gold. We need to lighten up the emphasis on standardized tests, which do not measure anything fundamental about our character or human worth. But here's the big one. The data clearly shows that 65 to 70% of our students' outcomes are determined outside of the school. We're talking about time spent at home with the parents, words read to them when they're young, stress levels in the house, income, type of neighborhood. We're putting money into schools, and educators know this. We're saying you're 100% responsible for educating our kids, but you can only control 30%. They all know this. The answer is to put money directly into the families and neighborhoods to give our kids a chance to learn and our teachers a chance to teach.
Mayor Buttigieg, 45 seconds.
Veldig bra. Han argumenterer for at endringer må også skje utenfor skolen. Det ikke bare skolen som problemet.
I believe in public education. And in order to strengthen it, some things are very complex for preparing for a future where knowledge is at your fingertips, but we got to teach more to do with critical thinking and social and emotional learning. Some of it is extremely simple. We've just got to pay teachers more. And we've got to lift up the teaching profession. I always think of a story from South Bend of friends who host exchange students from Japan. They had a student one year who wanted to be a teacher, and they kept in touch with her when she went back to Japan and to college. She took the exam to try to become a teacher in a society that really regards teachers and compensates teachers well. And she came up just short. So you know what she did? Since she was academically good but couldn't quite make the cut to be a teacher, she had a fallback plan. She became a doctor. That is how seriously some countries treat the teaching profession. If we want to get the results that we expect for our children, we have to support and compensate the teaching profession, respect teachers the way we do soldiers, and pay them more like the way we do doctors.
Senator Warren, to use Mr. Yang's term, are you just jumping into bed with teachers' unions?
You know, I think I'm the only person on the stage who has been a public school teacher. I've wanted to be a public school teacher since I was in 2nd grade. And let's be clear in all the ways we talk about this, money for public schools should stay in public schools, not go anywhere else. I've already made my commitment. We will have a Secretary of Education who has been a public school teacher. think this is ultimately about our values. I have proposed a 2-cent wealth tax on the top 1/10 of 1% in this country. That would give us enough money to start with our babies by providing universal child care for every baby age 0 to 5, universal pre-K for every 3-year-old and 4-year-old in this country.
Thank you, Senator.
Raise the wages of every child care worker and preschool teacher in this country. Cancel student loan debt for 95% of the folks who got it.
Thank you, Senator.
And strengthen our unions.
Kansellere 95%, ja.
Det bare øke skattene på the 1%.
Hun sier aldri hvor mye hun ønsker å øke skattene, eller hvor mye det vil koste. Det det samme unngåelsen av summen hver gang.
Jeg vet ikke om den matten heller går opp.
Nei. Jeg kjøper mer matten til Bernie når han sier at han vil skattelegge 0,5% på Wall Street-transaksjoner. Jeg føler det mer, uten at jeg noen økonom selvfølgelig, men det høres mer oppnåelig ut.
Because right now in our public schools, our teachers, 94% of them are coming out of their own pocket to help pay for school supplies. And that is wrong. I also want to talk about where we are here at TSU and what it means in terms of HBCUs. I have, as part of my proposal, that we will put $2 trillion into investing in our HBCUs for teachers because one, as a proud graduate of a historically black college and university, I will say that it is our HBCUs that disproportionately produce teachers and those who serve in these many professions. But also,
Thank you, Senator.
But this is a critical point. If a black child has a black teacher before the end of 3rd grade, they are 13% more likely to go to college. If that child has had 2 black teachers before the end of 3rd grade, they are 32% more likely to go to college. So when we talk about investing in our public education system, it is at the source of so much. When we fix it, that will fix so many other things. We must invest in the potential of our children. And I strongly believe you can judge a society based on how it treats its children, and we are failing on this issue.
Guess what? You're guessing. All right, here's the answer. We are the wealthiest country in the history of the world, and yet we have the highest child poverty rate of almost any country on earth. We have teachers in this country who are leaving
helt tyste når han snakker om dette.
because they can't work 2 or 3 jobs to support themselves. Which is why, under my legislation, we will move to see that every teacher in America makes at least $60,000 a year.
Oi,
What we will also
det
do,
mye penger. Jeg mener du har lest at FBI-agenter tjener 40 000 i året.
we will make public colleges and universities and HBCUs debt-free. And what we will also do, because this is an incredible burden on millions and millions of young people who did nothing wrong except try to get the education they need. We are going to cancel all student debt in this country.
Thank you, Senator.
And we are going to do that by imposing a tax on Wall Street speculation.
Thank you, Senator. Mr. Vice President, I want to come to you and talk to you about inequality in schools and race. In a conversation about how to deal with segregation in schools back in 1975, you told a reporter, I don't feel responsible for the sins of my father and grandfather. I feel responsible for what the situation is today, for the sins of my own generation, and I'll be damned if I feel responsible to pay for what happened 300 years ago. You said that some 40 years ago. But as you stand here tonight, what responsibility do you think that Americans need to take to repair the legacy of slavery in our country?
Ok, da vi tilbake til...
Spørsmål om reparasjoner, rett og slett.
Da vi tilbake til det. 3 spørsmål om rasisme og reparasjoner. Ok.
Banks, making sure that we are in a position where, look, we talk about education. I propose that what we take is those very poor schools, the Title I schools. Triple the amount of money we spend, from $15 to $45 billion a year. Give every single teacher a raise to the equal raise of getting out the $60,000 level. Number two, make sure that we bring in to help the teachers deal with the problems that come from home. The problems that come from home, we have one school psychologist for every 1,500 kids in America today. It's crazy. The teachers are, and I'm married to a teacher. My deceased wife is a teacher. They have every problem coming to them. We have to make sure that every single child does, in fact, have 3-, 4-, and 5-year-olds go to school, not daycare, school. We bring social workers into homes of parents to help them deal with how to raise their children. It's not that they don't want to help, they don't know quite what to do. Play the radio, make sure the television, make sure you have the record player on at night, the phone, make sure the kids hear words. A kid coming from a very poor school, a very poor background,
Jeg skjønner ikke hva han snakker om.
Han surrer fælt.
by the time they get there. There's so much no, I'm going to go like the rest of them do, twice over, okay?
Okay.
Da skal jeg bruke dobbelt så lang tid, jeg også.
We got this a little backwards. And by the way, in Venezuela, we should be allowing people to come here from Venezuela. I know Maduro. I've confronted Maduro. Number two, you talk about the need to do something in Latin America. I'm the guy that came up with $740 million to see to it those three countries, in fact, change their system so people don't have a chance to leave. You're all acting like we just discovered this yesterday.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Secretary Castro.
Thank you very much. Well, that's quite a lot. You know, I grew up in one of those neighborhoods that folks have talked about, in a neighborhood that's grappling with the legacy of in two public school districts that were involved in a 1973 Supreme Court case challenging how Texas financed its schools. And I know that today our schools are segregated because our neighborhoods are segregated. Right. Now, I have an education plan, like a lot of folks up here, that would pay teachers more, that would recruit diverse ranks of teachers, that would invest in our public schools. But I also believe that we have to connect the dots to uplift the quality of life, to invest in housing opportunity, to invest in job opportunity, to invest in community schools that offer resources like parents able to go back and get their GED, and healthcare opportunities, and those things that truly ensure that the entire family can prosper. Those are the types of things that we need to do, in addition to lifting up our public schools. You asked a second ago about charter schools. Look, it is a myth that charter schools are better than public schools. They're not. And so,
thank you, Secretary.
While I'm not categorically against charter schools, I would require more transparency and accountability from them than is required right now.
Senator Booker, coming to you now. It was 65 years ago this year that the Supreme Court outlawed racial segregation in public schools. Yet for millions of students of color today, segregation remains a reality. Non-white districts typically receive $2,200 less per student than those in white districts. This means older books, less access to computers, and often worse outcomes. What is your plan to address segregation? And I'm not just talking about the achievement gap, but I'm talking about the opportunity gap in education.
So I'm hearing a lot of conversations on the stage and the way we talk about communities of color. Look, I live in a black and brown community below the poverty line. I've lived in public housing projects almost for a decade and saw the anguish of parents who are just so deeply frustrated that they don't have a school that serves their genius. I think I'm the only person on the stage, even though I had no formal authority as mayor to run a school system, I stepped up and took responsibility for our schools. And we produced results. A lot of folks here talking about raising teachers' salary. We actually did it in Newark, New Jersey. And we didn't stop there. We closed poor-performing charter schools, but dagnabbit, we expanded high-performing charter schools. We were a city that said we need to find local solutions that work for our community. The results speak for themselves. We're now the #1 city in America for beat-the-odds schools, from high poverty to high performance. Strategies like investing in our children work. And I'll tell you this, I am tired of us thinking about these problems isolated, disconnected from other issues. That's why my friend Secretary Castro is 100% right. We are in the reality we are right now because, Vice President, of overtly racist policies, not 400 years ago, just in my lifetime. that we're redlining communities, disinvesting in communities, and more than just that, my kids are not only struggling with racial segregation and housing, and the challenges of underfunded schools, but they're also struggling
Hans barn
with
sliter med
environmental injustice.
Tviler på det.
Foreldrene hans skitrike, og det sikkert han også. Tviler på at barna dine sliter med segregation.
In America where children have more than twice the blood lead levels of Flint, Michigan.
Thank you.
And so if I'm president of the United States, it is a holistic solution to education, from raising teacher salary, fully funded special education, but combating the issues of poverty, combating the issues of racial segregation, combating the issues of a criminal justice system that takes parents away from their kids, and dealing with environmental justice as a major pillar of any climate policy.
And we are back now for a final round of questions. One question for each candidate. We're going to go in reverse order from the opening statement.
Okay, siste kvarteret.
Quality of resilience. No president can succeed without resilience. Every president confronts crises, defeats, and mistakes. So I want to ask each of you, what's the most significant professional setback you've had to face? How did you recover from it? And what did you learn from it? Vice President Biden.
Nå starter de øverst på pollingen og går nedover.
Ja, men altså, biggest setback, det var det som var spørsmålet, ikke sant?
Største setbacken I karrieren deres.
Hæ? Hva er det som skjer nå, da?
Folk publikum som hyler. Bernie gestikulerte, fortsett å snakke. Jeg hører ikke hva de sier.
Nei, det var helt umulig, men få dem ut da, herregud.
Virker ikke som at de hører det heller.
There's setbacks and there's setbacks. And I think the most critical setback that can occur to anyone is to lose, well, my dad had an expression. He said, Joey, it's not a question of succeeding whether you get knocked down, it's how quickly you get up. And you say, never explain and never complain.
Det også fra Rocky 6.
The only obligation that really matters, the most important thing, is family. And so I was raised to believe that that was the center of everything, family. And it could be judged on based how you treat your family and how you went from there. And it took, you know, Kierkegaard said, faith sees best in the dark.
Ok, han har lest Kierkegaard, ja.
En av de tidlige postmoderne filosofene.
Jeg har også lest Kierkegaard.
And I lost my faith for a while. I came back. And then later when my son Bo came home from Iraq and with a terminal disease, and a year and a half later, losing him was like losing part of my soul. But the fact is that I learned that the way you deal with it is you deal with finding purpose in what you do. And that's why I hope he's proud of me today, because he wanted to make sure I didn't run for president, but I stayed engaged. Because when you get hit badly, whether you're losing a job or you're raising a family like my dad, where you have to make that longest walk up the stairs to tell your kid you can't live here anymore, dad lost his job, you know, we've all went through that in some form or another. And it just, for me, the way I've dealt with it is finding purpose. And my purpose is do what I've always tried to do and stay engaged in public policy. But there's a lot of people that through a lot worse than I have, get up every single morning, put their feet one foot in front of another without the help I had. They're real heroes out there.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Senator Warren.
For så vidt et godt svar. Jeg vet ikke helt om han svarte på spørsmålet, men jeg er enig med at mening viktig.
Jeg glemte litt hva spørsmålet var.
Det hva den største setbacken I karrieren har vært. Han valgte mer å fokusere på det med hvordan han kommer seg tilbake fra en setback.
And my story, like a lot of stories, has a lot of twists and turns. Got a scholarship, and then at 19, got married, dropped out of school, took a minimum wage job, thought my dream was over. I got a chance. down the road at the University of Houston.
Jeg har ikke fulgt kampanjen hennes veldig nøye, men nå det tilbake til det at jeg liksom et helt vanlig menneske.
Som for så vidt kan trekke en del velgere hos demokratene, faktisk.
Det det som strategien hennes, da, prøve å fremstille seg selv som en
jordnær kandidat.
Ja, 19 år og gifte meg og bla.
Ja, som jeg tror faktisk ikke en dum strategi. Jeg bare, ja.
Men hun gikk også på Harvard, da, så hvor everyday person hun egentlig? Jeg vet ikke.
Du I hvert fall I en topp lav prosent hvis du har gått på Harvard, kan man si.
Det kan jo egentlig gå begge veier, det her, prøve å fremstille deg selv som en sånn vanlig person. Altså, enten så tror folk på det, eller så tenker de, æsj, du ekkel.
Ja, det akkurat det. Enten kjøper folk det du sier, eller så tenker de privilegium med en gang.
Rent-controlled apartment in Brooklyn, New York, the son of an immigrant who came to this country without a nickel in his pocket. Professional resilience means to me, George, running for U.S. Senate in Vermont and getting 1% of the vote. Running for governor and getting 2% of the vote. Finally becoming mayor of Burlington, Vermont with 10-vote margin. What resilience means to me is that throughout my political career, I have taken on virtually every powerful special interest in this country. Whether it is Wall Street, whether it is the insurance industry, whether it is the pharmaceutical industry whose corruption and greed is killing people today, whether it is a military-industrial complex or a prison-industrial complex. And I feel confident that given a lifelong record of taking on powerful special interests, of standing up for the working families of this country, that I will be able to take on the greed and corruption of
Spørsmålet var jo biggest setback, da.
Han kjører den samme taktikken. Han vrir alltid tilbake på sin agenda, som ja, for så vidt I de fleste tilfeller bra. Akkurat her føler jeg ikke det var et riktig svar. Her en mulighet til å vise litt ydmykhet.
Medmenneskelighet.
It can't be done. They said nobody like you has done it before. Nobody is ready for you. When I ran for DA, I won and became the first black woman elected DA in a state of 40 million people in San Francisco. When I ran for Attorney General of California, I was elected.
Går rett på selvskryt. Jaha.
And I was the only woman black elected Attorney General in the state, in the country. And each time people would say, it's not your time, it's not your turn, it's going to be too difficult, they're not ready for you. And I didn't listen, and a part of it probably comes from the fact that I was
Her snakker vi om en feil hun har gjort, eller feil hun...
Eller en biggest setback, altså biggest setback var at folk sa at hun ikke kunne gjøre det, og så gjorde hun det. Det ikke noe setback.
Her snakker om motstanden, men ikke om hva som liksom satt henne tilbake, eller feil hun har gjort selv.
The town halls that we do in this race for president of the United States, and I look at the meetings that we do in the community meetings, and I see these little girls and boys, sometimes even brought by their fathers, and they bring them to me, and I talk to them during these events, and they smile, and they're full of joy, and their fathers tell them, see, don't you ever listen and let anybody ever tell you what you can or cannot be. You have to believe in what can be, unburdened by what has been.
Senator Harris, thank you very much. Mayor Buttigieg.
You know, as a military officer serving under Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and as an elected official in the state of Indiana when Mike Pence was governor, at a certain point, when it came to professional setbacks, I had to wonder whether just acknowledging who I was going to be the ultimate career-ending professional setback. I came back from the deployment and realized that you only get to live one life, and I was not interested in not knowing what it was like to be in love any longer. So I just came out. I had no idea what kind of professional setback it would be, especially because
Snakker om homofilien sin, eller?
In my socially conservative community. What happened was that when I trusted voters to judge me based on the job that I did for them, they decided to trust me and re-elected me.
Så igjen, ikke en setback.
And what I learned was that
Ingen...
trust can be
dette var et dårlig svar av Buttigieg.
Part of how you can win and deserve to win is to know what's worth more to you than winning. And I think that's what we need in the presidency right now. We have to know what we are about. And this election is not about any of us up here. It is not about this president, even though it's hard
et spørsmål med litt for åpenhet for å kunne dodge, faktisk. Men forhåpentligvis ikke folk helt ignorante til svarene deres.
A generation wondering whether we will actually get the job done on climate change. And if we hold to that, then it doesn't matter what happens to each of us professionally. Together, we will win a better era for our country.
Mayor Buttigieg, thank you. Mr. Yang.
I was an unhappy lawyer for 5 whole months, and I left to start a business. And I'm going to share with you one of the secrets to entrepreneurship. If you want to start something, tell everyone you know.
Snakker til kamera også.
And then you don't have a choice. You put your heart and soul into it, and even though I did that, my company flopped, had its mini rise and maximum fall. Lost investors, hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Han snakker om setback. Selskapet hans feila.
Told people I was a lawyer. Yes, it was a little easier. So I remember lying on my floor, looking up, wondering how it had come to this. Eventually, I picked myself back up. I kept working in small growth companies.
Han snakker jo faktisk om en ordentlig nedgang, han her.
Ja, startet et selskap som floppa, og det var vanskelig. Ja.
No longer want to spend time with you. And so I spent 7
Godt poeng, altså. Alle vet det. Alle vet at du starter et selskap, og hvis det ikke funker, så betyr det at det floppa, liksom.
Who left his gilded Wall Street job to become a food entrepreneur in San Antonio. Sean, I hope I made the process a little bit easier for you than it was for me. But the goal of my campaign is to make this an economy that allows us to live our human values and aspirations.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Yang. Senator Booker.
Jeg synes Yang har kommet godt ut av debatten I dag, altså, faktisk.
With a bunch of tenant leaders in Newark, New Jersey in 2002, took on the political machine, and boy, did they fight back. I had tires on my car slashed, our campaign offices were broken into, my phones were tapped. It became a spectacle, and we lost that election. And here's a bit of advice to everybody. If you're going to have a spectacular failure, have a documentary team there to capture it, because it made for an Oscar-nominated documentary called Street Fight. But then, unfortunately, another setback, it lost in the Oscars to a movie called March of the Dagnab Penguins, for crying out loud. The people in my community...
Han har humor I hvert fall, han skal ha det.
People won't give up on you. Create bigger and bolder coalitions, and you're going to win. And you know what? We came back 4 years later,
ville kalt det en ordentlig setback,
won the largest lopsided victory in our city's history. But more than that, the lesson was there. We didn't give up. We were taking on America's toughest problems, from crime to poverty, and we transformed our city, creating tens of thousands of new jobs, the biggest economic expansion in our city, and as I said before, turned around our school system. There's more work to do, but I haven't given up on the people. I still live in that community. But this is the big lesson. My staff and my friends and my community told me, if you want to go fast, you may have won the mayor's race, but that's not what life is about. There's an old African saying that says, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. The lesson I learned of resilience is to trust people, because the power of the people is always greater than the people in power. And the test of America right now, it's not a referendum on Donald Trump, it's a referendum on us and who we are and who we're going to be together. We need to use this moment in history to unite in common cause and common purpose, and then there's nothing we can't do together as a nation.
Senator Booker, thank you. Congressman O'Rourke.
Thank you, George. Everything that I've learned about resilience, I've learned from my hometown of El Paso, Texas. In the face of this act of terror that was directed at our community in large part by the President of the United States, that killed 22 people and injured many more.
Var det presidenten som rettet det angrepet? Hæ?
Nei. André, det var presidenten som var der og skjøt.
Ja, det virket sånn. Altså, drar det 2 ganger.
Når de gjør alt for å bare tjene billige politiske poeng, altså, fy faen, det ikke rart du poller rundt 3%, liksom. Fy faen, for en skittent menneske, ass.
Ja, det var skittent taktikk.
Og han blir bare mer krass og krass, liksom. Nå var det
verre enn første gangen, faktisk.
Ja. Neste jo at Trump faktisk var der selv og skjøt.
Ja.
Memo, his co-coach, is still fighting for his life right now at Del Sol Hospital. Those 2 men, Jessica
Høres ut
and
som en
Marcella,
person som ikke har hatt en ordentlig nedgang, rett og slett. Når han må dra den taktikken der.
Of gun violence in this country, when we finally confront the racism that exists in America, when we're defined not by our fears, but instead by our aspirations and our ambitions, it will be in large part, I think, thanks to the example that El Paso has set.
Congressman, thank you. Senator Klobuchar.
My challenges and resilience have brought me up here. I grew up with a dad who struggled with alcoholism his whole life, and after his 3rd DWI, he had a choice between jail and treatment. He chose treatment with his faith, with his friends, with our family. And in his words, he was pursued by grace. And that made me interested in public service because I feel like everyone should have that same right to be pursued by grace. I then got married. My husband's out there somewhere, hopefully smiling. And our daughter. And our daughter was born. I had this expectation we were going to have this perfect birth. And she was really sick. And she couldn't swallow. And she was in and out of hospitals for 1.5 years. But when she was born, they had a rule in place that you got kicked out of the hospital in 24 hours. She was in intensive care, and I was kicked out. And I thought, this could never happen to any other mom again. So I went to the legislature, our state legislator, not an elected official, a mom, and I advocated for one of the first laws in the country guaranteeing new moms and their babies a 48-hour hospital stay. And when they tried to delay the implementation of that law, I brought 6 pregnant friends to the conference committee, so they outnumbered the lobbyists 2 to 1. And when they said, when should it take place, they all raised their hand and said, now. That is what motivated me to go into public service. And when I got to that gridlock of Washington, D.C., I got to work and pass over 100 bills. And I know a lot of my friends here from the left, but remember, I am from the middle of the country. And I believe if we're going to get things done, that we have to have someone leading the ticket with grit. Someone's going to not just change the policies, but change the tone in the country. And someone who believes in America and believes it from their heart because of where they came from. That everyone should have that same opportunity.
Senator, thank you. Secretary Castro.
And thank you, George, to Jorge, to Lindsay, and to David, and to all of y'all for tuning in tonight.
Jesus Christ, de så mange.
Castro is my mother's name and was my grandmother's name before her. I grew up in a single-parent household on the west side of San Antonio, going to the public schools. Eventually, my brother Joaquin and I became the first in our family to become professionals. And when I got home, I took a job at the biggest law firm in town. I was making $100,000 a year in the year 2000. A few months later, I got elected to the San Antonio City Council, and the City Council at the time was only paying $1,040 a year. So everybody had another job, and my job was at the law firm. Well, a few months after I got elected, the law firm got a client, and the client wanted those of us on the City Council to vote for a land deal. The land deal was that they wanted to build a golf course over our water supply because we relied on an underground aquifer. I didn't think the Environmental Protection Plan was strong enough, so I wanted to vote against it, and my constituents wanted me to vote against it. But under the ethics rules for lawyers in Texas, because believe it or not, lawyers have ethics rules, you can't just go against the interests of a client, so I was stuck. On the one hand, I wanted to do the right thing. On the other hand, my livelihood, my student loans, my new house payment, my car payment depended on me shutting up, being conflicted out. So one day I walked into my law firm and I quit my job.
Det må være noen intense regninger han sliter med å betale når han har 7 millioner i lønn i året.
Er du sikker på det, eller har du gjort matten feil?
Han sa $100,000.
I året, ja.
Ja, beklager, det ble jo selvfølgelig 700,000 kroner.
I wondered before I went in it whether it would change who I was. And I was proud that when that first test came, that I stood up for the people that I was there to represent and not for big special interests. There's nobody that gets tested more in a position of public trust than the President of the United States. This president has failed that test. But I want you to know that if you elect me president, I won't. I won't serve anybody except you and your family. And together, we can create an America that's better than ever. Thank you very much.
Ja, når du har over 700,000 i lønn i året, og ikke klarer å betale studiegjelden din, da har du høy studiegjeld, ass.
Ja, da har du tatt mange grader, tror jeg. Ja. Det var den siste demokratiske debatten.
Det var det.
Ja, hvem synes du kom best ut da, av debatten?
Warren så sterk ut, synes jeg.
Jeg enig, faktisk. Warren, hun ble ikke... Det virket ikke som hun fumlet med noen svar. Hun kom med ganske greie tilsvar. Jeg synes også for så vidt Yang gjorde det ganske bra. Bernie startet litt kronglete, men jeg synes han reddet seg inn med debatten, og når han fortsatte med å spille inn på den plattformen som han kjent for, rett og slett.
Men jeg tror Warren, hun var sterk i den debatten her, og hun appellerer både til Bernie Sanders-velgerne og til Biden-velgerne. Så vi får se litt på hvordan meningsmålingene ser ut etter denne debatten her, men hvis hun gjorde en skikkelig sterk debatt, så kan hun ha trukket velgere fra begge leire, faktisk.
Ja, det kan godt være det. Jeg bare litt bekymret for hvordan det vil gå når hun skal møte Trump. Jeg tror ikke hun har sjans mot den slangetungen til Trump, rett og slett.
Ja.
Jeg tror Bernie eller Biden de som har best sjanse mot, eller Yang. Jeg
veldig usikker på Biden. Jeg tror Biden...
Jeg har mine tvil om Biden, jeg også. Jeg har det. Men hvis...
tror jeg den type velgere Biden appellerer til, de ikke, altså... Han kommer til å bli spist... Ja, de kommer til å bli spist opp av Trump-velgerne, rett og slett.
Ja, jeg enig. Jeg ser ikke noen grunn til hvorfor folk skulle stemme på han i stedet for Trump, faktisk.
På en annen side da, så tjente jo Trump veldig mye på at at Hillary Clinton var motkandidaten, fordi det var så ekstremt mange som fant henne så uspiselig. Hun var liksom pro Wall Street, pro denne sånn ekstrem kapitalisme, og
så har du alt av valgjuksen og
Ja, ikke sant? Og så velgerbasen til Trump ble jo liksom skikkelig fyret opp fordi Hillary var motkandidaten da. Men hvis Biden motkandidaten, så kan det at de ikke så engasjerte, og at da Trump taper veldig på det.
Det kan være. Jeg må innrømme at jeg tror, altså, av kandidatene så tror jeg ikke Biden det som har mest sjanse. Jeg vil si, av de som var på scenen i dag, så tror jeg det Bernie som har størst sjanse. Kanskje til og med Yang. Men og rett og slett fordi at de har konkrete forslag, og jeg tror ikke de ville blitt sugd inn i de der retorikkampene til Trump.
Nei.
Men jeg tror dessverre at Warren ville blitt sugd inn i det. Du så jo hvordan du ble sugd inn med alt det her Pocahontas-tingene og sånt. Hun lot seg spille som en fele, rett og slett.
Og jeg må si, den som gjorde den verste debatten i dag, det må ha vært Kamala Harris. Altså.
Ja, det jeg helt enig i. Hun kom ikke godt ut av nesten noen av spørsmålene. Jeg kommer ikke på et eneste spørsmål hun kom godt ut av.
Nei, og hun snakket ikke om noe om sin plan i det hele tatt. Det var bare fokus på Trump. Altså, det var bare surr.
Ja, jeg helt enig. Kamala kom dårlig ut av den debatten her, altså. Det merkelig. Men jeg synes Buttigieg kom ganske godt ut, altså. Jeg må si at jeg ble litt i Han fikk nesten en stemme fra meg, altså. Faktisk. Han spiller ikke inn i denne identitetspolitikken, samtidig som han også ganske rett på sak med det han mener løsninger, da.
Ja, det blir spennende å se om meningsmålingene skifter noe i det hele tatt frem mot, det kommer vel en debatt til, tipper jeg. Vi hadde jo en episode før der hvor vi snakket om litt om eller hva vi forventet i debatten, og da snakket vi litt om at kanskje Kamala skulle få sjansen til å redeeme seg selv litt da, etter at hun ble så grillet i debatten hvor Tulsi Gabbard var med i, og jeg vil si at hun fikk sjansen av moderatorene, men hun tok den ikke.
Nei, hun brukte ikke den sjansen. Hun kom nesten verre ut, vil jeg si. Fordi at det svaret hun ga, altså hun startet jo med å si at jeg har ventet på dette spørsmålet, takk for at dere stiller meg det, og så var det jo det var en viderespilling av det svaret hun ga da Tulsi kom til angrep også, at jeg stolt av karrieren min, da jeg var Court Justice, så gjorde jeg dette og dette, og jeg kjempestolt. Så, men nei, jeg synes ikke hun kom noe godt ut av debatten. Jeg mener du har helt rett på det, altså.